99th anniversary of the historic meeting at the Jekyll Island Club on Jekyll Island, Georgia. It was the J.P. Morgan estate, and after the panic of 1907, Senator Nelson Aldrich got together with J.P. Morgan and other powerful, influential moguls, monopoly men, if you will, and decided that we would have a central banking system for America. It would help to stabilize the economy, not just of America, but economies around the world, where we would have a private central bank. It would issue out the money and debt, not just to lend the money to the United States, but also to banks all over the world, to help keep things stable. Well, since 1913, our dollar has been devalued by over 95%, and Congress has given up its authority to regulate monetary policy and regulate the economy as it's outlined in Article 1, Section 8 and Article 1, Section 10 of the U.S. Constitution. In attendance today, we have U.S. Senate candidate Tom Cox here directly across from me, and to my right here, we have U.S. congressional candidate for the 2nd Congressional District here in Arkansas, David Meeks, who have been kind enough to agree to speak today. And without further ado, I'd like to invite my good friend David here to speak to you all. Thank you, David. I'd like to thank Rob for putting this on today, and I'd also like to thank Rob for getting me a little bit more educated about the Federal Reserve System and about the different things that they're doing in Congress, because like many of you may have been at one point, we were just going along and not realizing exactly what the Federal Reserve was or what it was doing to the value of our dollar. So I appreciate Rob introducing me and helping to educate me a little bit on what the Federal Reserve is and what it was doing. And I found out some very interesting things along the way. And those things have really alarmed me because, like he said, the value of our dollar is decreased so much because of the Federal Reserve and the Federal Reserve's policies. And I think that we should be alarmed by that. Because as you know, we have to use our dollar to purchase. Okay? I mean, that seems just like a duh moment, but it is. And what they're doing by controlling the dollar the way they're hurting our jobs, hurting our businesses by controlling it. Now we need to get more accountability in Washington. You know, Rob told me about HR 1207. And I signed the petition, and I got behind it, and I tried to get other people to sign it. Well, the good news is they have over 300 sponsors in the House of Representatives, and over in the Senate now, there's 30 on the Senate bill. But what ended up happening? When they finally got HR 1207 into committee, Mr. Watts, who is tied to the banking industry, gutted HR 1207. Basically took all the teeth out. Why? Because his donations and his contributions were coming from Bank of America. Our congressmen and our representatives should not be controlled by anybody but the people. Just this past week I found out that instead of trying to hold some accountability to the Federal Reserve, there's now another bill in Congress, H.R. 3996, that would actually give more power to the Federal Reserve. Folks, go home and look it up. H.R. 3996 if you're not aware of it. If that bill goes through and gets through Congress, we're going to be in a lot of trouble. Okay? We have the health care bill, as you know, coming down the pike. We have cap and trade coming down the pike. We have the climate treaty there in Copenhagen coming up in December. That's going to give our sovereignty away. And then on top of that, they want to try to slide this H.R. 3996, giving the Federal Reserve even more power.
One of the things that it will do is basically give the Federal Reserve the ability to bail out any business that they think is too big to fail. They wouldn't even need Congress to come and give them any more money. So what will that do? That will basically give them the ability to control businesses, corporations. If the business is deemed too big to fail, then they can break it up at our expense. That's the power that they're going to be given if this bill goes through. So what do we need to do? Is we need to spread the word. Just like Rob told me, and it woke me up and I said, whoa, wait a minute, hold it. This is something that I didn't know. This is something that's important to know. Each one of us needs to go out and needs to tell everybody that we possibly can about what is going on with our Federal Reserve. Another thing that I found out is, you know what? We had two central banks prior to this one in 1913. Both of them ended because of the corruption and because of the power that they had accumulated. And thankfully, at the time, we had presidents that understood what was going on, and they basically stopped it. And then they tried it a second time, went, stopped it. So this is the third time that we've had a central bank. And I believe that if we were able to audit them and get behind this thing and actually audit them, you'd probably find out the same thing. Number one, the corruption that's inside there. Number two, the power that they have to control our economy and to control our businesses would probably be very frightening. And so while we may be a small group here today, guess what? People are waking up. We see that. We see that. But what is the key? It's education. We have to be the ones to go and tell them. Don't expect them to all of a sudden say, wait a minute, hold it, let me go and look up the Federal Reserve. We have to be the one to educate them. We have to be the one to tell them what is wrong and why we not only need to audit the Fed, but I believe that eventually we need to end it. We need to end it. H.R. 833, thank you. Okay? We have to, because if we don't, then we're going to leave our children and our grandchildren at the mercy of this Federal Reserve, at the mercy of our government. Folks, it's going to be painful to do it. I understand that. And a lot of people, they don't want to get out of their comfort zone necessarily. But in order to save our country, and in order to save our Constitution, which I always try to carry around with me, because I believe that this is the document. This is the document that we need to go by. And if it's not in our Constitution, then we don't need it. Okay? We don't need it. This is the document. I'm not afraid to say it. Okay? We need to go back to our Constitution. But because we've gotten so far away from it, you know what? I believe that there is going to be a little bit of pain. There is going to be a little sacrifice. But I'm willing to do that to save our country. And I'm willing to do that so that future generations don't have to go through what we're going through right now. We need people to stand up. And that's where it starts. There were 56 signers, original signers, on the Declaration of Independence. And a revolution spread from there that birthed this great nation. You know what? We have people not only here, all across the nation who are doing the same thing that we're doing. And so it's not just us here today. There are rallies in Philadelphia and in other cities that are doing the exact same thing. We need to band, we need to unite, and we need to see through the end to get rid, audit the Fed, and then get rid of it. And we need to also fight to return our country and our government to be the people and to what the Constitution says. Thank you, Ralph.